Participants in the Thrift Savings Plan will see some changes to their investments starting in 2024. The TSP's iFund will be moving to a new benchmark index next year. That change comes after a unanimous vote of approval from the Federal Retirement Thrift Investment Board. The new index marker will expand the iFund and should improve its risk-return profile. Federal News Network's Drew Friedman got more from the TSP Board's Director of External Affairs, Kim Weaver.
The board regularly does fund benchmark reviews about every 5 to 7 years, just to make sure that things haven't changed and that benchmarks are still appropriate for the statutory requirements and for our participants. And so this is something we've done, as far as I'm aware, the length of the program. And we did another review this year, and we hire an investment consultant. And the investment consultant goes out and they look at the span of potential indexes or benchmarks, and then they start winnowing them out, saying they're not appropriate for us, right? For other people, they may be fine. And so, as they have in the past, they said that the benchmarks for the C, S, and the F funds were all good and shouldn't be changed. But for the I fund, we follow what's called MSCI EFA, which is Europe, Australasia, and Far East. And when we first started that back in 2002, it was a pretty good representation of the non-US equity markets. But as emerging markets have developed and emerging countries have gotten bigger, EFA only now exposes us to about 55% of the world's equity market. And so we are moving, and I'm only going to say this full name once because it is longer than anything. We are going to be moving to the MSCI All Country World ex-USA, ex-China, ex-Hong Kong Investable Market Index. And I have to say, the acronym isn't much shorter. The acronym is MSCI ACWI IMI ex-USA, ex-China, ex-Hong Kong Index. All of which is to say that exposes us to about 90% of the world's equity market. It adds in Canada. It adds in small cap stocks for both emerging and developed countries, and it adds in emerging markets. But as you can tell from the title, ex-Hong Kong, ex-China, it doesn't include those two localities.
And let's go into the reason for why those countries were excluded. I understand this is something that has been on the board's radar for quite some time now, so why was that decision made?
I think our investment consultant summed it up very nicely. And they said that operational complexities has increased when you invest in emerging markets, given the range of events such as the Russia-Ukraine conflict and the U.S. banning any investment in Russia. Then we have banned investment in certain Chinese, we the U.S., not we the TSP, we the U.S. have banned investment in sensitive Chinese technology sectors. Certain Chinese companies have been delisted. So when you're in that kind of situation, that creates volatility and potentially performance return issues. And it also, to the extent that you have to disinvest quickly, you're going to most likely lose money because, of course, everyone else in America is disinvesting too. And so the reason we're not going into Hong Kong and China is because of the operational complexities as the investment consultant outlined.
And just to be clear, because I know there was some controversy initially early on with the transition of the iFund in Congress and the Trump administration, White House. So that did not have to do with a decision to exclude those countries. It was more just the market itself.
It was the fiduciary decision that our board made after reviewing the consultant's report and reviewing our staff recommendation. No, it was not a political decision. They made a fiduciary decision based on actual information.
And other than the transition of the iFund, I understand that the board also had its latest participant satisfaction report come out. What were some of the notable trends that you saw this year?
Well, I want to give some background first. We do these annual surveys, and they're run by Gallup as a contract to us. They are a snapshot in time. Then separately, our record keeper is getting participant feedback on a daily basis if you do a transaction, if you take out a loan, you take out a withdrawal, you get a survey as to how satisfied you were, what issues you encountered. So the participant satisfaction survey is sort of looking at how participants felt macro wise at this point almost a year ago. And then we're also getting the daily, and they're both very useful. With that background, the most recent survey found that our participant satisfaction fell from 87 to 82%. Obviously we want our participants to be satisfied with our services, so we are taking that to heart. The other thing that I think was very interesting is that Gallup correlated TSP customer satisfaction with the market. And so when the market's doing better, TSP participants are more satisfied. When the market is not doing as well, participants are less satisfied. Now, that's not obviously the sole driver of participant satisfaction, but I certainly know that when I look at my balance and it's down, I'm like, eh. And, you just sort of have an overall moment. So what I'm trying to say, I think, is that the survey is a useful tool and we try and integrate all the data. And so, for example, participants very much are driven by the security of tsp.gov. Again, we've got information about them. We've got information about their investments. They want us to be secure, and we absolutely want to make that happen. They want to have good information on tsp.gov. They want to be able to roll over money in and out of the TSP. And as we've talked about, I think before, our new record keeper starting in June of 2022 started offering a concierge service to help people roll money into the TSP. Also, a driver of satisfaction is the annual account statements. So with that in mind, it focuses where we're looking. And then again, we take into account what we're hearing on a daily basis.
And Kim, I'll just ask one last question of you. I know that you really closely track Congress and everything that's happening with legislation that might impact the TSP or the Federal Retirement Thrift Investment Board. Is there anything recently that you've seen or anything that you're still tracking at this point in the year?
Yeah, there's one provision that we are tracking. There's a provision in the Financial Services General Government Appropriations Bill, the House version, that would say no mutual fund in our mutual fund window could be there if it made decisions based on ESG criteria. Again, as we've discussed, there's about 4,600 mutual funds in the mutual fund window. They're Vanguard funds, they're Fidelity funds, they're Schwab funds. We have no control over them, and we don't have the ability to police 4,600 mutual funds. And so that is a serious problem and concern. And so we're just, as you know, the appropriations process is a little murky right now. So trying to figure out what's going to happen with individual bills, that's what we're tracking to make sure that people are aware of the concerns there.
That's Kim Weaver, Director of External Affairs at the Federal Retirement Thrift Investment Board, speaking there with Federal News Network's Drew Friedman.